coming at you guys with the first ever episode of Fables Friday, where I talk about Fables on Friday. So this week I'm going to be talking about Batman vs. Bigby, the 6-issue miniseries from DC Black Label, intended to reintroduce Fables to a modern audience and set the stage for Fables 151, which came out this week Tuesday. And if you watched my video on Wednesday, you already kind of know all about that. So on New Comic Book Day, after sitting down and reading through Fables 151, I immediately dug into my back issue stacks and pulled out all my Batman vs. Bigby. I was reading this as it was coming out, so I read like the first couple, 2-3 issues or so, and then I decided to wait and just finish it once the series finished, and hadn't had the chance to get into doing that. And so before getting into my thoughts, we'll just take a quick look at the various covers. So this is the cover to issue number 1. All the covers are done by Yannick Paquette, who I think is actually a really good fit for Fables and Batman. Yannick Paquette has done Batman before. So kind of a great cover artist choice. Here's issue number 2. Issue number 3. Issue number 4. Number 5. And then finally, issue number 6, which is actually probably my least favorite cover. I think other ones just have better atmosphere than this one really does. So talking about this series, there's kind of a couple different ways we can look at it, right? Because you can look at it as a Batman story, you can look at it as a Fable story, you can look at it just as a story in and of itself, or you can look at it in the context of, you know, sort of a marketing tool to get people reacquainted with the Fables universe before jumping right into Fables 151. Now, if you watch my Fables video from Wednesday, you'll know I really like that this book is picking up right where it left off. The smoke is still billowing from the castle at the beginning of the issue. It even says it in the narration. And while there are some characters placed in 151 to kind of get the audience up to speed if they haven't read other Fables titles, it largely throws you in the deep end and says, figure it out. And I love that about it. Now, I also said in that video that the danger of that is sort of the gatekeeping element. You know, I want people to be able to hop into Fables and have a great time because I want the Fables community to grow. I don't want it to shrink into obscurity, which at this point it kind of largely has. I was surprised how many people, after doing that Wednesday video, said, hey, you know what? I've never actually read Fables. So looking at this series as an event leading into Fables 151, I will say right off the bat, well, obviously I don't know like what sales numbers are or anything like that. This is about as good of a job as you could have done without kind of completely selling out. I think Fables fans will be quick to point out, you know, it's like, okay, you got Fables, but you're throwing Batman in there, like, what the F, right? Batman's in everything. You know, if Batman's not in it, it doesn't sell. And something like Batman vs. Bigby might feel like kind of a shameless cash grab. But when you read this book, like, this is not the Batman we know. This is a very different Batman than what we're used to. He is in a universe that's either pre-New 52 or just kind of a universe unto itself. It definitely feels like an alternate Earth version of Batman. You have a whole army of Robins in this, one of whom is Stephanie Brown, aka Spoiler, which, if this is in main continuity, fits into a very specific short period in DC Comics history from like the mid 2000s basically, but I doubt that that's really what they're trying to pull from. You know, that would have been at the height of like Jason Todd coming back and all this other stuff, whereas this is very much unconcerned with that. It's more interested in presenting this Bill Willinghamified version of Gotham City and Batman in such a way that both is true to the Batman character, but could also sustain the entrance of various Fable characters that are kind of peppered in here throughout. Only a couple, but some pretty significant faces do show up in here, outside of course, Bigby himself. You have the obligatory fight between Batman and Bigby that sort of, you know, teases the power level of these characters and, you know, what that world is really like. And then as they introduce other characters like Cinderella and the villain, who I guess maybe I won't spoil who that is, it definitely piques your interest. And if you go pick up Fables 151, which, while the events in here don't have anything to do with what's going on in Fables 151, to be clear, there are parallel characters that are relevant to that issue that show up in here that are going to help give you context if you read this and then you hop in and read Fables 151. So overall, I think this is actually a pretty successful attempt of DC to get people interested in Fables. I'm not sure if it necessarily worked, but I do think it was actually a well thought out editorial attempt. Now, as far as the story itself goes, does this work as a Fables comic? I think absolutely. Part of what is interesting about Fables is how they interact with the mundane world, both with how sort of modern concepts have been applied in the context of these various Fable characters, but then also how they integrate into regular society when it is necessary. And you get a lot of that in here, because you've got Bigby Wolf working undercover, trying to find this lost magic book that has been unintentionally thrown into this universe that happens to include Gotham City and Batman. But then at the same time, he has allies working in the Gotham City Police Department, including Cinderella, who reports directly to Jim Gordon and is pretending to be someone from Detroit or Chicago or something like that, like a member of a special task force or what have you. And then also the villain in this works really well both in terms of Fables and in terms of Batman, because you get the return of Naaman the comic book worm. Oh no, sorry, just the bookworm. My bad. Which I thought was a really great villain. Like, what a great choice. Like, if you're gonna do a Fables crossover, of course the villain would have to be Bookworm. I just think that that is a great sort of Batman deep cut. That I don't know that anyone other than Bill Willingham would have thought to put them in this book. I'm not sure if Bookworm has even been in Batman comic books before, or if he's just a relic of the TV show from the 60s, because I don't think Bookworm was a character. Feel free to correct me down in the comments below if I'm wrong. Maybe they've made an appearance in comic books at some point, but I've never read one, so I guess who knows. Now, of course, there's more going on with Bookworm than meets the eye. Bookworm actually kicks Batman's butt, which is kind of a bizarre, great moment in this series. And we find out that Bookworm has been possessed by someone else. And I'm not sure I want to spoil who that is in here. I would say maybe go out and read it. But it is a very significant character and has pretty significant implications given what happens in Fables 151 and what happened in Fables 150, which I still haven't read 150, but I know some of the plot points of what happened in there just from being aware of it at the time and also doing a little bit of research after reading 151 and trying to make sure I kind of understood loosely at least what was going on. So yeah, largely I think that this is a very successful series. If you like Batman, you're going to get plenty of Batman with ridiculous armor, ridiculous traps, contraptions, all the sort of tropes of a more techie Batman, arrogant Batman, stubborn Batman. Alfred quits in this after being really upset that basically Batman was on death's door and keeps going out for more, keeps persevering in the face of potential catastrophe. Very Batman. But if you're a fan of Fables, there is a ton in here for you to enjoy, because this is written by Bill Willingham, and in my opinion, it does have that Willingham creative Fable charm to it. It's hard to talk about without spoiling a lot of the specifics, but I will say that, if Fables had been created and set in the larger DC universe, like from the beginning in 2002, so glad that's not the case, to be clear. This is probably what I would imagine it to be like. And after reading, Stormwatch, for example, recently, where, they're grafting the Wildstorm universe on top of the DC universe and trying to, inflate the importance of Wildstorm and Stormwatch and Grifter and all those characters to make them seem more important than they really are. In this, it does a much better job of really just trying to integrate the two worlds into one. and tell a compelling story that can satisfy both types of readers, which I think is really cool. The last note I'll say before wrapping up this video is just to quick comment on the art in this, which, reading online some other reviews, people had some kind of mixed feelings about it. I, for one, think it's fantastic. Like, it absolutely fits the mold of Fables. I think Brian Level absolutely nails that aesthetic without being like a Mark Buckingham. Like, this is very much its own thing. There's a wonderful use of, I don't know what to describe it as other than like walleye vision, where everyone's sort of contorted, where there's like a almost like a magnifying glass filter over the art, that I thought was done just enough to be really effective, but not actually take you out of the experience. And the result is simultaneously very cartoonish, but surprisingly detailed. Maybe you look at this and you think it's busy. I don't really get that impression at all. I think that there's enough use of negative space and black levels in these pages to kind of pull it all together. But definitely a very unique experience. I've never seen Brian Level's artwork before, but it definitely intrigued me to go check out other artwork of theirs, because I do think that it is very effective in this. Definitely another artist in the DC pool that I think would be great on Fables in a later series if it were to continue. I think that the Fables storyline running right now, this 12-part series, is going to be the new end point. Like, I think it's supposed to go through 162, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it's successful, they continue on beyond that. So I guess I'm just hedging my bets and hoping that it continues on, but I guess time will tell and we'll see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review of Batman vs. Bigby. Did you pick this up or did you skip it? I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. I think it's definitely more of a sleeper book, but one I really think is great. I can't sing its praises enough. I had a lot of fun reading it. It's not super heavy, but it's just entertaining and fun, and a solid Batman crossover, if nothing else. If you're not interested in Fables, if you like, you know, Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Batman vs. Predator, like, to me, it feels like that level of quality in terms of, you know, putting these two worlds together, mashing them up, and putting out something that is compelling but also stands alone, right? So if you haven't checked it out, once again, I definitely recommend you do so. I tried to sing its praises in This Week in Batman, but since I haven't been reading the non-continuity stuff and doing the reviews, my commentary was fairly limited, so I'm excited to give it a full video right here so you guys can hopefully figure out if this is a title that appeals to you and you want to dig in a little bit further. Whether you do or you don't, be sure to leave a comment, a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I hope you guys have a great week in comics, and thanks for watching this video. Take care.